What's up, guys? How you guys doing today? Welcome to Last Sunday. We have an amazing guest. My mother-in-law. She, so she is a. Wait, tell me the right way to say it before I mess it up.
A licensed clinical social worker.
Licensed clinical social worker. Because I was over here calling her a therapist, but you are a therapist?
Yes, I'm a therapist as well.
Okay. I'm confused. I don't even know. No, so happy to have you on. So get straight into it. I wanted to ask you why did you become a social worker?
I became a social worker first. I don't really know what I wanted to be at first. So at first I was in high school and they were going on and on about you need to know what you want to do and what are you going to do and where are you going to go to school and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't go to school right after high school. But I considered being a nurse, and then I got into psychology classes, and I started taking psychology classes, and I really like psychology. But then I also started taking sociology classes, and I like sociology as well.
What's the difference between those two?
Psychology is more the study of the person, the study of the brain, the study of the mind, like just the individual. And sociology is kind of the study of people, of groups, of cultures, of kind of, the study of everything. Like
like groups. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when I looked more into it, I found out that social work was kind of more of everything, all of it put together. Whereas psychology is just dealing with the person, and social work dealt a lot more with like the systems and everything involved, giving resources like whole families, whole cultures, just the whole system, everything. So social work just seemed more interesting. The other part, though, also was that I was told that it was a little easier with social work. Like you just had more opportunities, more options to do things. It wasn't just like with one person and doing one thing. So yeah, and then I thought that also you had to do a little bit less school to be a social worker. If you're going to be a psychologist, then you had to go even further in school to be able to really do anything or to make a lot of money.
So you had to do a lot of years. How many years for that for
school?
For school, yeah.
For social work, I have a master's degree. So for a master's degree, typically.
We're here with a master's degree. Okay.
So for a master's degree, typically it would take someone 6 years, because it's 2 years for your associates, 2 years for your bachelor's, and then 2 years for the master's degree. Or sometimes you can get it done a little bit sooner. But for me, it took a little bit longer because of just life.
Yeah.
Life in general.
Life in general. Allison. Okay, that's what she means.
Yes, Allison and Bryce.
And
we can't
Bryce.
give Allison all the credit. So took me a little longer. I did part-time school for my associates. I did that. I went to community college, so I did my associates at Waubonsie, and then I transferred over to university. I went to Aurora University, and I did my 2 years bachelor's degree. But then, because of Bryce, I ended up took me 3 years to get my master's degree done.
So 8 years in total?
8 years of school for me, yes.
Yes. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
The other question I wanted to ask you was, what is the main, this is like probably the most important question that I want to get into, was what is the main thing that you see that people are unhappy?
I think that's probably a much bigger answer than maybe what you're probably looking for. Unhappy, there's lots of reasons people are unhappy. Sometimes it's them, the way they think about the situation. Sometimes it's the situation that they're in. I don't know, there's lots of reasons why.
Overthinking.
Yeah, overthinking's definitely a big part of it.
Would you say, because I feel like, I don't know, from my experience of dealing with people, obviously I'm not a social worker, but would you say the experience of how they were raised, growing up, is probably a big thing? Or
yeah, that plays a part in it. So there's two parts of it. Besides the way they were raised, genetics plays a part in whether someone can develop a mental illness, depression, anxiety, something like that. So genetics will play a part. So yes, if you have it in your family, then you're more likely to have a
like depression and like genetics, as far as like having depression that runs in your family, anxiety, stuff like that. Okay.
bipolar, any of the mental disorders there's a genetic component to it, but then there's also definitely the idea of your situation and how you're raised, and do you learn healthy ways to cope? Do you not learn healthy ways to cope? Is it your situation that kind of developed you to have those feelings or that way of thinking, or you could have definitely been taught it as well? Yes.
Yeah, because like I feel like for the longest I've been wanting to go to therapy, and I never actually went to therapy because I feel like us as a society, or like I don't know if it's the Hispanic culture, we kind of like look at it like, oh, you going to therapy, like what, you don't need therapy. You kind of like suck it up and like get through it like, you know, on your own. So I don't know, I feel like as I found myself, I feel like therapy was probably like one of the things I was trying to get into. Do you see that with any like of your clients that kind of like they're raised a way where like they'll tell you like I don't even know what I'm doing here, or stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that actually there's not one person who couldn't benefit from going to therapy, really.
Yeah.
Because therapy can do a lot of different things. It's not just one thing. Sometimes people have the misconception that I'm not going to go there. What are they going to tell me? They can't tell me how to live my life and how to do what I need to do, but that's not necessarily it. Therapy can offer just a place for you to vent, to let it out. It can be a guide. It can be learning healthier ways to cope with things. It can be learning a different way to think about things.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that have come in that said, you know, it is like, I just don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, or it took me this long because I thought it was this when really maybe it's something else.
It's crazy. I was just thinking, I was like, I was talking to you a little bit about like how I was listening to that dude Joe Rogan, you know, I was telling you about, and he had Jordan Peterson on, and he's like I don't remember what he was. Do you remember when I told you he's like a sociologist or something?
Oh, was it a psychologist?
I think he was a psychologist.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how like a lot of people, they are upset because something was did to them, so they find a way to like cope with it, like as far as like alcohol, drugs, or they're just angry people. Do you ever experience any people like that? They just have like this type of like vendetta against the world, or like nobody cares about me, nobody.
Yeah, that's a lot in negative thinking, definitely. Yeah. People just thinking like, why is this happening to me? Like why me? Why am I always the one? And in most cases, they're not necessarily always the one. There's definitely, it's either maybe not as bad, or there's things that they're doing sometimes that cause their situations that they get into. You know, if you're convinced something is bad, then you're not going to see that it could be better, or you're not going to try to find a way to make it better. Yeah, we kind of see the
worst in everything. And I feel like I feel like I've been working on that as far as like trying not to see the worst in everything, but it's like a habit. It's like it kind of just ingrains in you because you're used to it. It's like kind of what you know, like, oh, well, something's bad's happened to me, so let me feel sad about it, or let me cope on it, and not really, you know what I mean? So
yeah, what I tell people all the time is you've been thinking the way you've been thinking since however old you are, really, typically, whoever it is. And sometimes that's 15 years, sometimes it's 20 years, sometimes it's 50 years. Yeah. And it's like, okay, but now, because I brought it to your attention, it's not going to change overnight. So it's definitely a gradual shift that you have to be patient with.
You gotta take your time.
Yeah, some people have a hard time with patience.
Yeah. I do. Okay.
That wasn't really just meant for you, but
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were sending shots, so no, I was just kidding.
If the shoe fits, you know.
No, me and her have this relationship where we just like talk crap to each other a little bit. Like we just like poke at each other.
I don't know. I agree with that.
The next question I wanted to ask you was, what is the general advice that you give to people to help them with their happiness?
There's a lot of things. It's kind of the same thing as the other question of what makes people unhappy, but there's lots of things. I mean, some basic things are like balance. A lot of times we don't have balance in our life, so finding balance, whether it be work like work personal life or responsibility personal life, or whether it be, doing extremes one way or the other, always really into this and then not doing this at all. So a good part of it is finding balance, learning better ways to think about things or healthier ways, thinking about different perspectives, just being able to see things from a different point of view.
Okay, and I was gonna ask you, have you ever? Well, obviously, probably, but like, are there some clients that you're telling them all this stuff, you're seeing them on a daily basis, and it's not getting to them.
Mm-hmm.
What do? You just obviously got to keep trying to talk to them.
Sometimes the hardest part in a big thing that you need to figure out is what is my responsibility and what is theirs, and I can't do it for anybody else. They have to figure out how to do it if they're going to make a change or if they're going to make a difference. Sometimes just pointing it out that they're right, like someone who says I can't, it won't, it's not, and just being very stuck on the negatives. You're right, and telling them they're 100% right, and then sometimes people kind of look at you like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, why are you telling me I'm right?
But because I'm agreeing that it's not going to work. But then you have to kind of finish it up with, well, no, it's not going to work because you won't let it work. You're not even giving it a chance. You're not trying. You're shooting it down before you even, give it an opportunity to work. Yeah,
that's great. I feel like you're speaking to me right now, because it's like some stuff I'm just like, as I like grow as a person, I kind of like, what you're saying is kind of things that I picked up naturally of trying to like work on myself. Like, I'll analyze myself after I do something that probably wasn't the best decision, and then I'm like, maybe I should have not done that. And then like I kind of think about it, like, or if I'm trying to change something that it's kind of like a bad habit or whatever, I look at it like, what is this? Is this benefiting me, or like how can I change this? So that's good.
Well, and it's also not being too negative on yourself, because not everything's gonna be perfect, or we make mistakes and that's how we learn, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you keep repeating the same mistake, well, then maybe you should probably kind of look into that. But to do something and not work out, some of it is you have to try it to know, otherwise
then that kind of like, just because like what you were saying right now, I wanted to touch on like the habit aspect. I was reading this book. It's called Atomic Habits. Sorry. It's about how like a habit is basically something that you do without thinking. It's just like natural to you. And he was talking about how like we'll come home after work and then we'll sit down and eat dinner and watch a show. Like, but we're so used to it. And then when we like try to start going to the gym, we can't do it. So he's like, do it little by little. He said like, he was talking about how like one of his clients will literally go to the gym for like 5 minutes and then just walk in, do a little bit, and then leave, just to get in the habit of going to the gym. And it's just kind of crazy. Like, I don't know. But
that's true. It's whatever you do automatically. That's the same thing when we're talking about learning coping skills and learning better ways to handle things. You could know it, but in a moment when you need it, you're not thinking about very clearly, logically, like, oh, wait a minute, what was that better thing that I should be doing? Rather than the thing that you always did before. So you have to practice it and practice it and practice it. So then when you need it, you can use it. But change, definitely gradual change is the best way to do any kind of change. Because that's the problem. People like to do big change. You see it in New Year's resolutions. People are on diets, people are on exercise kicks. By February 1st,
they're done.
So that 5 minutes at the gym is gonna stick a whole lot better than
going there for an hour and then tiring yourself out, and you're like, do I have to do this?
And then you give up, because really it's the gradual change that's the better change that actually sticks with us. And people, it comes back to patience. People have to be patient.
And I feel like a lot of times, like you said, we look at it like for the big picture. Like there was a video I saw of some other guy. He was like saying like, the reason why you don't lose weight is because you want everything to happen right now. And it's like, he literally said that it took him 2 years, but he knew that was going to take him that long. So that's why like he basically took his time on losing weight. And I feel like a lot of times, like you said, we're impatient. We want it now. We want to like see the change now. And it's like, oh, you got to wait. You got to like work for it. But also like, just going back to what I was saying about the guy that goes, like, you think about going to the gym for 5 minutes, you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Why would you go there? But I don't know, that I think that guy like lost 200 pounds or something like that from just doing that. And then 5 turned into 10, turned into 15 to 30, and then so on and so forth. He just got used to just doing it.
Yeah, that's the other thing is if you break up your routine, if you have a bad habit, because if you want to quit doing something, if you change your routine, change your schedule, like you said, if you come home and you said eat and watch your show, but you're eating bad food or you're doing something, or if it's like the people who smoke a cigarette every time after they have a meal, if you change up what you're doing, sometimes that makes a difference. Like instead of me eating and then going right outside, I have to eat and walk to a different part. And when you change what you're doing, a lot of times that habit, you break that cycle of that habit because it's something that you're doing without thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if you make yourself do something different, like I come home, instead of sitting down and eating something, a snack or something, I take a shower or I go
do something different to break
else.
that habit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it helps to be able to set better, healthier things in your life when you want to make a change.
I want to touch, because I feel like we kind of blew past the social worker part about like you, like what's the process of that. So like what it was the process of like when you were going to school and doing all that, like were you ever thinking like I don't want to do this?
I don't know that I ever thought
or you were just like in too deep, you're like, I already been here for 3 years and
yeah, I mean, no, I wanted to do it. So like I said, I got the associates, then I switched to schools and I got the bachelor's, and then I stayed in the same school and did the master's. The one thing I did do for myself for schools, I never let myself take summer classes because I felt like if I didn't get that break,
then you would have.
I wouldn't keep pushing myself to do it.
There was like a stat or something about how like students that go to college right after or like no, students that don't go to college right after high school, they don't end up like continuing in college or something like that. They end up
to college.
Yeah, if they don't go right after high school, like the percentage of not going right after is like you going back is super low or something like that, or high.
Yeah, that people typically don't go back if they take that gap year and they maybe don't go back to school. Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't go to college immediately. I graduated high school and I didn't go back to college for like 2 or 3 years after I graduated high school. And it's funny because I think when I went to college, I don't know that anybody was really expecting me to go to college. Not that they weren't, but I don't know. I guess they just maybe like, the same kind of thing.
You going to college?
Yeah, maybe the same kind of thing. Just the idea that if you didn't go, then maybe you're not going to. But
I had 1 year of college, and then I was just like, yeah, this is not for me. I don't know. But I went like right after. It was like community college, and I was just like, I can't do this.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's the other part too, is people are like pressured to decide and figure out what to do, but really, there's not a right way or a wrong way.
That's what you were saying,
things.
like before. You were saying like how you felt like you had to figure out what you wanted to do, and then you were like, should I do nursing? Should I do this? And then you kind of found what you wanted to do. Yeah,
but that was even after, like, I was thinking about nursing while I was in high school because they keep asking you. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll give them an answer. But I didn't go right to school, and I considered nursing, but when I started school, I just kind of started taking classes, and like I said, psychology just... I was interested in
you know what's crazy, just thinking about that? When I was in high school, I remember like they had the people come or whatever trying to figure out what you want. It was a careers class, and we were like look up different careers. And I remember like it's crazy. I'm thinking about it. I remember looking up careers just because of how much they would get paid. Like I wouldn't even care about what it was. I was just like, what can make me the most money? And I just felt like I was just thinking about like, I feel like we do that too much. We need to just do what we love, because at the end of the day, it's like it's not gonna matter. Yeah, well, you have to do it, and you have to do it for a long time. So you might as well. Do you ever get people like that? They're like doctors or lawyers, and they're just like, or whatever, like whoever.
That people aren't happy with what they have.
And they have
Speaking of like what makes you unhappy, sometimes people doing things for the wrong reasons, right? Like they're not into it. They're not interested. They chose it for whatever reason, and that reason's just not working anymore for them.
Or they look at the numbers and they're like, wait, I can make this much?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, whatever. If I'm making this much, I think I can do it. Or
Mm-hmm.
I'll put up with it. It's like...
Yeah, and that only goes so long, right? If
Yeah.
you don't have a good balance. Maybe
Yeah.
because jobs like that, sometimes you're working too much, and then it's not... How much money you make doesn't matter anymore if you have no time for anything else, really.
Yeah.
So.
I was gonna ask. I was gonna touch in a little bit about how was like, cause did you have an internship?
Yeah.
Like when you first.
So when you do social work, you get an internship with your graduate, which is the bachelor's, and then also with your undergrad. It's undergraduate is your bachelor's, and then along with your master's too. So you have to do an internship with both. So I did an internship with both with the state of Illinois. One was with the Department of Children and Family Services, so DCFS. That was my one with undergrad, and then I was working with kids who were out of the home. So I was working with kids who were already placed for whatever reason. So they could have been in a foster home, or they could have been in a facility.
Like DC.
It was for DCFS,
yes.
yeah.
I'm like, do not mess this up.
Yeah. So that was my first internship, and I had to do that. Was interesting, but kind of difficult to watch and to see. And then my second internship was with Elgin Mental Health Center, which is the state hospital,
Okay.
on the forensic unit, which meant that if these people were there, they committed a crime, and they got sent to the hospital instead of being sent to jail.
They will talk to you.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the local people. No.
Yeah, there were definitely people, yes, who were pretty sick, pretty severely.
I wanted to touch on like the child part of it, like the
DCFS.
Yeah. You mentioned that was tough. Did you see a lot of like broken homes and stuff like that?
All the kids that I worked with, they were already out of the home, which means they got removed from their parent and they got placed either in a foster home, or they got placed in a facility, or they got placed in I think there were even kids in like juvie.
Oh wow.
So they were in all kinds of places for all kinds of reasons, but that was hard because they'd been through a lot.
Yeah.
You know, there's obviously if they're removed from the house.
And then I wanted to, like, speaking of that, just to touch on how do you like remove yourself from your clients? Like, how do you not? I mean, I'm sure you probably do because we're human. But like, how do you try to detach yourself from like a client of like? Because I know like some people will have these crazy stories, or like sometimes it's like, man, that's like I would be sad too if I like had your experience or was going through the same thing you were.
I think that's a hard one to answer, and I don't know if I know that answer exactly, but I feel like that is the thing that keeps me going, because that's a question that a lot of people have, is like, if I tell them a story or something that was hard, or, you know, I talk about something that I went through and was difficult, then they're like, I don't know how you do that. How could you go to work? How could you look at this? How could you? But I do feel like I do that well, but I don't know the answer. But I feel like when I'm like, sometimes obviously things creep in.
You got Taco right here. Taco, get over there. Sorry, it's my dog. Sorry.
I think that things do creep in sometimes.
Taco, get down.
But for the most part, I do a good job of, when I leave home, home stays there. And when I go to work, you know, I'm at work. And then when I leave work, it's gone until I come back to work.
I guess it's like one of those things that you had to think about, like in the process of becoming one, right? You're like, can I detach myself from this? Or do you feel like...
I don't know that I thought about it. I maybe just got lucky.
Just like, let me just get it.
I think I just got lucky.
It's like somebody that becomes a doctor and doesn't like blood. You're like, whoa, I got 8 years of school. Like, whatever. I'm sure they have practice before that, but yeah.
Well, it's because I don't know that you are 100% prepared for what you're going to get, right? Because you can get anything, really. You don't necessarily know what you're going to be getting yourself into. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know that I was really prepared. I didn't know that for sure I would be able to do that. You know, the other part is the people that I work with, like working with a good team and being able to talk to them and being able to kind of process what I need to process, whether it be with my peers that I work with, coworkers, or, you know, other clinicians. I know a lot of them, so that part is nice, because there is something to doing a job that not everybody gets. Like, I can't necessarily go to anybody and be like, oh, this is the tough day I had, because some people just look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah. And then you can't really talk on different clients and stuff like that too.
Yeah, you can't talk about anything that's specific to them. I mean, in general, you can kind of talk about some things. So when you need to talk about specific things, it is good to have a team that you're just
you can
kind of
like
you can talk to.
Guess what happened today?
A little bit, but yeah, because you do need to. It's because as much as you can separate, you do need to talk about.
I wanted to say, like, I guess, like, how is that? Does a therapist or a social worker, I guess, but you're both, right? So does a therapist get therapy? How does that work?
Yeah, many therapists do get therapy. That's why I said there's not really one person in the world who couldn't benefit from therapy. Therapy could be beneficial to anybody at any time. And like I said, therapy could be a lot of different things. There's a lot of, because your job is hard and because you need an outlet and a place to put that. And because there's burnout, there's so much that you have to do and you don't have the time. Like there's not a lot of resources and stuff like that. You're expected to do a lot of things. But a social worker can do lots of different things. But yeah, a therapist can be a lot of different things as well. A therapist can be someone who studied psychology, so a psychologist, like the guy you were talking about. Could be a social worker, could be a licensed counselor. So there's a lot of different people who could end up being a therapist. So a therapist isn't necessarily a social worker, and a social worker isn't necessarily
Taco didn't like that you said that. I don't know why.
I see that. It might be raining out there or something.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm at my crib. I'm in my pajamas. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I put the hat on. This half looks like I'm professional, but I'm not. Okay. She's professional.
I am dressed. Came straight from work.
Taco, get down. Sorry about that. And then I wanted to ask you, what is probably the crazy experience that you've had as a therapist?
That's hard. I don't know the answer because there's all kinds of things that come that you don't necessarily know. And the other part is I've had lots of different experiences because I'm a therapist, but also I'm a case manager. So I work at a hospital, and I do case management. And I've worked in a couple different emergency rooms. So just that in itself leaves you open to just
seeing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, wild things happening that you... yeah. And then a couple of the emergency rooms I worked in.
Wild things like we want to hear.
Like, I don't know anything specific to share. I'll have to think about that. Hopefully by the end I'll give you something. But I mean, there was lots of things when I worked in the ER. I had to be there. It wasn't just like therapy, like you're thinking right now is this, but like I had to be there when people died, and I had to be able to break that news to the family. And I had to be there if like babies came in. There was a baby that came into the emergency room once, and they had stopped breathing at home, and the mom did CPR all the way to the hospital, and then they had to like airlift the baby away. And then there were just there's lots of things. There's lots of deaths, and then there's lots of mental illness, so people who are depressed, people who are anxious, people who are bipolar, so then sometimes they're psychotic, and then there's people who have tried to kill themselves, and that can be pretty tough too. I mean, because in the emergency room you're getting people as soon as something happens. So that I've seen a lot of those things, which are rough. Sometimes people go right to the hospital, sometimes they have to go to the ICU. I lost my train of thought.
No, I was gonna say what you were saying, like if I had to come up to somebody and tell them like, I'm sorry, you passed away. I feel like I wouldn't know what to say, so that probably had to be hard to do. Because I feel like me doing it, I'd be like, I don't know how I would break the news and tough situations like that.
I will say that was actually easier than you'd think, only because most of the time they didn't want anything at all. Yeah. They just, you kind of share that with, and I was never alone having to do that. There's nurses and there's doctors and stuff like that. But, I'm there for them, but they're a lot of times in shock or whatever. Yeah. So really it was actually probably easier than you'd think, because it's the afterwards, which then will come back to the therapy, is the processing the loss of somebody after they've had time to let it settle. Yeah,
just to share a little bit, like when my dad passed away, there was a therapist too that came to talk to our family. And she was just kind of there.
Yeah,
And
but
that would
nobody really.
that would be kind of like you, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She like had her own car and she came, and I don't know if she was part of the like, I don't even know, but she was there and she was like, and then they were gonna like have us do therapy if we wanted to and stuff like that, which it's great that like they have these different things like that for
Mhm.
people.
Sometimes it takes people a while to be ready for something like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a couple weeks after, sometimes it's months after. Each situation's very different. Sometimes it's many years after before somebody's ready to
To
actually.
go therapy. Yeah.
Mhm. It was for a loss or something like that.
I feel like honestly I feel like I will one day. I feel like I will.
Yeah, it's not as scary, or it's that you asked that
I'm not
question.
as scary. Yeah.
Yeah,
but-
you asked that question earlier too, though. It's funny because people come in, and I just said the first part of it, the idea that they don't know what or why or what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But then they get in and they get comfortable and they're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. I like this. Or
somebody I can talk to that's
Yeah.
not gonna judge me.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what I feel like a big part of therapy is. It's just like you said,
Mhm.
it's like venting to somebody, somewhere where you know that they're not gonna judge you,
Mhm.
and they've been with a lot of people that kind of probably been through the same thing you have, so they
Mhm.
kind of have like the best judgment on it. So for anybody that wants to go to a therapist, do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Seriously, do it. Go talk to somebody. If you're going through something, you can even talk to her.
Yeah, again, I'll say it again. There's not one, because people get stuck on that too. Like, why do I have to go to therapy?
Yeah.
But there's not really one person out there who couldn't benefit from therapy. Therapy
Yeah.
can benefit anybody, really.
Yeah, I think we're just scared of the fact of telling somebody stuff that we don't want to tell somebody.
Sometimes it makes it real,
Yeah.
right? If we keep saying, oh, no, it's not that bad, then it's not that bad. But as soon as you say it's that bad, then you have to deal with
Yeah.
that it might be that bad.
Yeah, I always joke around like me and Allison call you for everything.
Yeah. That is true.
So like she's like on-call therapist. So like I'm like, it could be taxes, it can be life issues, anything. We just call her right away. We're like, so what do you think about this? So what do you think about this? And you honestly always give the best advice, and I think it's because you're a social worker.
Well, that's funny because Allison always says that I don't give any advice at all.
Well, you know that's your daughter, so she's been hearing your crap all day. No,
That is true. And
No.
she didn't like it until recently. Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, she's like, I'll tell her, like she'll ask me something, and then literally I would say, I don't know, ask your mom, and then she'll call you.
Well, that's probably good.
Yeah. So, do you have a story? We were gonna circle back. Any crazy stories? Just one. Like this one time, there was this guy.
There was there was someone in the hospital who was there for because they had suicidal thoughts and they wanted to end their life, right? That's the whole purpose. They had a pretty significant attempt,
Yeah.
but they made it. They're in the hospital. They're getting better. They're doing better. They're starting to feel better. They're on their meds. They're getting ready. So we're getting ready to start group, and we serve snacks for group, right?
Mhm.
And then this guy's eating an apple, and what happens? He chokes on the apple.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, this guy has made it through all this stuff.
Did he die?
No.
Oh.
No, he didn't, but that's my
Yeah.
thought is this is irony at its finest.
Yeah.
That he makes it through all this is finally like, yeah, I can do it, I'm ready, all those things.
There's a short story, a short video. It's like a movie, kind of like, what are those the short movies or whatever?
I don't
Like
know.
they have, it's like a movie, but it's like 25 minutes, right? It's with
Okay.
this guy named Chance the Rapper. He's like a rapper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like him. It's like a story of him trying to like take his life, and then he goes on the internet and he's like, searches up Mr. Happy or something like that, and basically, he was trying to hire somebody to do it for him because he couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they hired this girl that works at his job, and like she makes him happy, and he's actually like, he's trying to like, no, I don't want to die anymore. But that thing that ends up killing, the lady ends up killing him. So like they made him happy, and then he ended up dying happy.
After he decided that he didn't want to.
Want to. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that has anything to do with just what she was saying, but I just came to my head.
It made you think about that at
Yeah.
least, yeah. So there's a crazy story for you. As soon as you think something, and then something else happens, and then Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna like touch on like a little bit about like where can somebody find you if somebody wanted to talk to you, or
well, if someone ever, so it depends on what somebody needs, right? If ever somebody is to a point where they feel like they're gonna hurt themselves, or they've considered it, or they're planning things or whatever, always hospital, get to the nearest hospital. And as much as we don't necessarily want to be in that space, that's the best space that you can be. So get to a hospital, if you feel like you're a danger to yourself.
The hotline 1-800, I don't remember what it was.
We should have had that written down.
Yeah, we should have had that. I'm sorry. But go to the hospital, like she said. If you ever, feel like you're going to put yourself in danger, go to the hospital, talk to somebody, see somebody.
And then they can kind of guide you from there as to what you need to do, but you get yourself to a safe place. If you're not necessarily there, you can look up, whatever's in your area. There's things depending on your insurance or who's close to you and things like that. I do work for KM Institute. It's a private practice. It's small, but it's growing. Mm-hmm. It's a good place. We do in-person. We do telehealth. We do all kinds of things we see people from children all the way up. So that is a place. Another good resource is Psychology Today. And that's just a resource that people can plug in whatever information. There's all the filters. So you can, where you live, what you're looking for, if you like a male therapist, a female therapist, all those kinds of things. What type of insurance you got, what kind of therapy are you looking for, what are the things that you're trying to deal with. You can put all that in there. So those are a couple of resources.
Also, we're not sponsored by them, but I hear it on every podcast I listen to. Yes, this is a podcast, but I do listen to other podcasts. There's this thing called BetterHelp. You can have a licensed therapist like through your phone, website. They'll answer texts, stuff like that. When I was looking into it, it is a little pricey, but I mean, if that's something that you're just too interested in, you can kind of pick the therapist that you want and then kind of have a therapist on the go in a way. So they schedule phone call, video phone calls and stuff like that. So if you want to look in that, look into that. BetterHelp sponsor last Sunday. Okay. So if there's like one thing that you could tell somebody going through a hard time, what would you say to that person? Just something brief, or like even if you didn't know their situation, it's just like
well, everything changes. If it's bad right now, doesn't mean it's always going to be bad.
Yeah. So
everything changes. That's something you can always look forward to, is change. So sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's just different. But that change will happen. So. Yeah.
And I was watching a video. I watch a lot of videos. Tom Hanks says, he was like, "What's one?" Like, he kind of similar question, and he says that this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. So give yourself time. Things are going to pass. It might feel like it's bad now, but give it time, and eventually it'll get better.
That's the other thing is, what's bad today doesn't always feel bad in a couple of days or
a couple hours sometimes.
even a couple minutes. You walk outside and walk back in, it wasn't that bad.
And I feel like a lot of times we have to realize that we are people. We have emotions. Sometimes we can feel these crazy things, and then we kind of like realize to ourselves like it wasn't even that bad. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like you said, you just have to give yourself time. You got to give yourself time to kind of like get through it. Because if don't get stuck into that.
One more thing, because it sounds like we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
Talk to someone else, because what's in our head sometimes isn't even close to what's happening.
But I would say talk to somebody that you trust, though. Talk to somebody that you're close to, because I've had experiences where you tell somebody something and they give you bad advice, and you're just like, I don't think this is what I'm,
No, you definitely a trusted friend, support, somebody, or crisis line or something, right? But say it out loud, write it down, because a lot of times once it comes out, it's just not the same as what we've been swirling around in our head for a while. Yeah. So.
All right. So thank you for being on. I really appreciate having you on. Episode 14. Let's
Wow.
go.
All right. Thank you for having me.
We're on the roll. Appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys listening. Also, if you are into MMA, I have an MMA podcast with my little brother. It is called MMA Amateur Report, so go check that out. Let's see, what else? I'm working on getting a better setup. This is what it is now, but eventually it's going to change. Just stay tuned for that, and I thank you guys again. Peace.